have you. Whoa, okay,
Yes,
we're in business.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You
He's on his
standing up,
stand-up
bud?
desk.
Awesome.
Yeah, always.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome,
good,
bud.
eh?
Yeah. You're our second stand-upper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And one of the Oaks, this guy Daryl Edwards, he's all about, movement and stuff and
Primal health.
primal
and all
health,
that,
and yeah,
It's made such a big difference for me. Can't even tell you.
is it? So
Yeah, he was his energy stayed up totally better than ours did because we were sitting. He was like up and he was at it the whole time while he was chatting. We were like, damn, like how does he keep his energy up so much? And I was like, it's because he's.
there we go. Happy days.
There we go.
All right, so we have everyone. Yeah, we're just.
Yes, it's the internet one day, but
yes, but it's crazy. Yeah, Eric, like Craig. Oh, okay. Yes, the Skype is horrible, man. Craig is now based in Aussie, and he's had a mission with internet. Like literally, he's actually he's actually
Super
running.
bad,
you're actually running on like 3G or 4G now because they can't connect your cables.
It's running a dongle. Yeah, because they've got just a shit connection. Like it's horrible, man. Like you'd be surprised. You'd think it's a first world country,
Exactly.
and it is. But like just in terms of the internet infrastructure is like devastating.
Can't believe
So
it.
frustrating. Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, it
But
really
yeah,
is.
that's how it works. Like nothing you can do, and you just have to make the most of it and not bitch about it too much. It's just super frustrating for everyone else if you're on a call and you're like, oh, sorry, like can we just, you know what I mean? Like okay, that's the shit part, But yeah, that's.
You'd
just
think in
fine.
2017 we wouldn't have these problems anymore.
Wow.
No,
But
but yes,
it's somehow
really-
just still there.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever since I've even in South Africa, like I don't think I've ever had a Skype call in my life where I've gone, that was amazing, I know. I would have thought that would have happened long ago.
Hello.
Yeah, you.
We've all had a go now.
Yes. Oh my word. Am I back now?
Yeah,
You're
you're
a bit
back.
intermittent. Have you noticed, Eric, that he's been a bit intermittent?
I've noticed.
Yeah. Thought it was just me.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. I thought I thought one of us would have it sorted, but maybe not.
No. London, come on, London.
Yes. Seriously. Yeah. I did actually notice this morning. Like I was like, flip. It seems like it's a little bit slow.
We're thinking now, if you're able to phone us on Skype from your phone, just the audio, right?
Yeah.
Then what we can do is, are you still there?
Yeah. I can actually. Can you see me on your screen now?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where you were talking about Trump. I don't know how far.
We carried on for a bit.
You've missed out on a lot.
Yeah.
The Audacity kept running, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Audacity's been the only winner consistently. Hey, like I've been stoked with Audacity. Hey, it's been really reliable most of the time.
Funny enough, now your audio and your video is like perfect.
Perfect.
Yes, it's just typical. I just knew something like that would happen. Cool. Well,
but that was really
this is
cool.
part of
Thank
the
you once
challenge,
again.
man. Yeah.
Cool, gents. No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So it's
So one of those things, bud.
It's one of those things. I don't know what's it like now? Is my signal okay now?
Perfect, bud. And honestly, the whole way, like I had to strain because you were like breaking up a lot.
Oh wow.
Like so, it would be like every second word you'd hear, and then it'd be like, okay, I think I got what you were saying. Like it was, it's quite tough to follow in a way when it's like that, like stuttery.
I know, but I know I could hear it as well. I couldn't hear it because my sound sounds perfect, of course.
Yeah.
But what I could see, I was like, these oaks are looking like they're really focusing on what I'm saying, and I just knew it. I was like,
Yeah, but that's the tough part because you just have to go, you just have to continue chatting and because the audio,
yeah.
You did well, bud. You did well. You didn't flip out, know.
Yeah.
So this is gonna happen, eh? This is gonna happen, and let's just flip and laugh, eh? Yeah, but I like it. Okay.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. Eh? Yes, what a nice guy.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. So.
Seriously, like well-spoken, very articulate.
No.
What's up, Gareth?
Hey, Craig. Say, my man. Happy New Year.
Yeah, my man. How's your day been, birthday boy?
Yeah, it's been awesome, my man. Yeah, geez, man. Back in London now after an awesome week in France snowboarding. Had my 37th birthday. Getting really old now. But
you have a good time?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, bud. Yeah, really cool. And just good, like, lots of snow, lots of good people, good mates, and, nice way to start the year, bud.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's good to be back. We were, like, super excited. We've had our first episode for the year, but we're recording again now, and we're just feeling like, all the holidays are done. It's like, let's get on with this and let's do this, So in your case, you have New Year's resolution, and then do you do like a birthday resolution? Do you have a little?
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily like call them resolutions, but just things that I like to focus on, or just try and do and achieve throughout the year. And I mean, there's so many, but one of the things that I really want to do this year is actually just to write more and like journal my thoughts, my ideas and goals, and just give myself, say, like, I don't know, 20 minutes a day just to write things down, and then use it as something to reflect on and to help me focus on the future. And I think, I've never actually done it before, so it'll be an interesting process for me. And let's see how it helps. That's just one of the things. But I also don't want to say too many things. How about yourself?
I like that. It sounds really good. Just to have everything written out and allow yourself just to let it all come out, I guess, onto paper, and it's all there. For me, one of the things I just want to simplify. We've discussed this a lot, Gareth. It's just simplification of our lives in different aspects of our lives. And for me, one of them is just making decisions faster and not overthinking things. That's going to be a big one. And so, it's part of the bigger umbrella of mindset, I guess. And our guest today is actually a mindset coach and has dealt with different aspects of mindsets all along his journey. And he's got quite an interesting story as well, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. Erik Kruger is our guest this week, and we had a really interesting chat to him. And he offers a lot of great tools to help people be better versions of themselves, and the cool thing is, like, he found out what he kind of wanted to do in life through trial and error. He tried many different things. He's got a lot of experience in a few different fields, and now he runs a successful online group called Betterman, which is branching out into other things now too. And he speaks a lot of sense and provides a lot of value in the chat that we had.
Yeah, he certainly is a testament to a good mindset. He tried lots of different things and stuck to it, and one of his principles in his life is to be learning, always be learning and upskilling himself, which he always did along the journey. And in doing so, that's actually where Betterman was born. People came to him for some advice, and he'd give them advice on how to just, be focused and be more switched on, and how to, be a better man specifically, and created, I think, which is something which is a bit of a niche where men can just be open in an open forum and be, push each other, help each other with no judgment. And I think it's really commendable. He's also, like you said, involved with a number of other things. And we'd also discuss things more practically in terms of marketing and these kinds of things, which are also things that often just get overlooked. And we like to focus on shiny object syndrome, as he mentions. But in this scenario, sometimes you just got to look at the nuts and bolts as well.
And one thing that's also important is that even though his focus has been on men, he's now sort of branching out and also wants to, you know, help women too. So in the chat, even though a lot of it we talk about, you know, what is good for men to become better men, there's a lot of value and a lot of tools that he talks about and advice that he gives that is practical advice for anybody to just be a better version of themselves. And, you know, we really liked what he had to say, and we really like him as a person, and just the fact that he wants people to be better versions of themselves is really, really cool. And I think that's part of what being ridiculously human is all about. So let's just sit back and listen to what Erik Kruger has to say and what it's like for him to be ridiculously human. Cool stuff. Well, Erik Kruger, good morning, my man. How's it going? How's your day been so far in South Africa?
Gents, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been chilled. I mean, post-Christmas, time to start looking towards the new year. So excited and ready.
That's awesome, man.
Nice. Do you have a good Christmas with some family and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was actually our first time at my brother's house. He bought a house this year for the first time, I guess. And everyone went there. So pretty cool. And you guys?
Yeah, we had a good one also with my bro. We had a good one, just relaxed. We actually had puri rolls for Christmas Day.
Oh, good.
It's like, how about you, Gareth?
Yeah, mine was awesome. We just had some friends over from South America, so we actually celebrated on the 24th mostly, like in the evening, because that's when a lot of the world seems to celebrate it. And then we just had, like, you know, your normal leftovers and whatnot on Christmas Day. But it was really cool, nice and chilled, pretty small. So I actually really enjoyed it, definitely. And so, Bud, you were recently away as well in Europe, weren't you? You had a nice little trip out there, I saw. And
yeah, awesome. And it's actually funny, like, talking about what everyone had for Christmas. So while we were here, we obviously had like traditional Boer Afrikaans meals. And then my girlfriend was sending me pictures from Germany, and they were all sitting there with their big, like, 500ml beers and Vos and like whatever. It's so funny, the different cultures. But yeah, I went to Germany for a bit. I went to Cologne and Winterberg, Amsterdam, which
nice.
Mind-blowing. Have you guys been to Amsterdam?
Yeah, it's a good place. I was living in the Netherlands for 5.5 years, and and Winterberg was actually it's like the closest place to go and ski. Yeah. So it was like it's actually it was loads of fun there actually.
Because when we got to Winterberg, we realized so many people were speaking Dutch, and then turns out that it's the closest place to go and ski. So
and every second place you stay is owned by a Dutch person as well there. It's crazy.
It was so cool though. My first time snowboarding, and sort of did a K on a kiddies hill, and then
nice.
we looked on this map and we saw that to get to one of the blue hills, you go up on a red hill, and then when you get to the top of that, you can go across, and then you're at the blue hill. And we get to the top, and we realize that the blue hill is not running for the day. They decided to close it down for the day. So I had to make my way down a red hill.
Nice.
Which, sure.
Was that the one that your girlfriend took you out on?
Yes, yeah.
Classic.
She managed fine. She got down and no problems at all. I spent about 50% of it on my ass. So
that's the nice thing about snowboarding. If you're not sure, you just go down your ass and you will be all right.
Yeah, get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that you have like the sort of most sore forearms ever, because you're literally just like doing tricep dips from pushing yourself up after falling all the time.
Yeah. So what was your trip? Was it just like sort of a holiday kind of thing, or what were you doing over there?
Yeah, my girlfriend's parents stay there. So that was sort of the main mission of it, is to go and see them. And then, just to relax a bit and get away. I'm one of those people that don't take holiday at all through the year. So she literally forced me. She's like, I'm booking the tickets, like, we going. And if it wasn't for that, I probably still wouldn't have gone. So she's very good at helping me get over my massive weaknesses, such as trying to go away and refresh and just get my head clear again. So she managed all of it. She managed my visa, like she made all the bookings, she filled in the forms.
Nice.
I just had to show up and enjoy.
But isn't it strange, though, hey, Erik, like when you sometimes reluctant to take some time off, but when you think to yourself, geez, why don't I do that more often? Because you end up almost being more productive, more like switched on, hey?
It is such a necessary component of creativity and productivity. But, once you like in it and you want to feel like you're effective all the time, it's very difficult to disengage. So and it's funny because when I'm writing and when I'm speaking, like I'm always talking about the importance of taking time off. But it's like the doctor that can't take his own medicine. It's that whole thing. So we need to make more time for it. We need to make more time to recharge. We need to make more time to detox from all the digital information that we're taking in every day. And it'll definitely help us be more productive, be more creative, be more effective. But it's actually just doing it and seeing the upside of it, not just thinking of it in terms of my being productive at this moment or not. Like we need to shift that whole mindset.
Absolutely, bud. And do you have like any part of your day where you write, okay, cool, this is my time, I'm just going to kind of do nothing, so instead of taking that long break, at the end of the year, you actually do it in smaller chunks?
So I do, like every morning I have a bit of a session where I do meditation, journaling, and completely just switch off from any consumption. And that's about an hour a day. And then what I'm also trying to get better at is when I'm at the gym to actually just leave my phone in the locker, because it's so easy to take your phone into the gym with you, because we always have this FOMO, right? Like, I'm missing out on a notification or an email. So I'm trying to really detach from that. And also when I'm in the gym, just to be there, be more present and not have this constant pool of notifications. And I actually, it's interesting we're talking about it because I declined an invite to like a Slack channel. It's a small thing, but there's this group of guys and they all support each other. It's like a big community of entrepreneurs essentially. And they invited me to be a part of their Slack channel where they have all these conversations going on every day. And I said I would love to be a part of it, but ultimately, like, I just don't need more notifications in my life at this stage. I'd like to focus on the things that are meaningful, that are actually important to me, instead of just being pulled away to my phone all the time, and then being distracted and constantly being conditioned that when there's a notification, I need to check what's going on. So I agree with you that those small breaks, that you schedule into your day is important, but I definitely think we need to make time for those sort of macro breaks where you really just... I went away for 15 days. I'd say for the first 5 days, I still wasn't really like completely relaxed. And then after that, it got better. And then when I got back home, that's when I really started to feel, wow, like I'm ready. Like I feel I can start writing again. I'm enthusiastic. I'm ready for it. Whereas for a big part of it, it still just wasn't there.
And when you were away, were you doing a bit of work, Erik?
No, I tried to completely shut off. So, like when you're creating content, you're always thinking about it. Always thinking about like, what can I do? What can I write about? And I have a running folder on Evernote. And if I get an idea, I pop it in there. And then I forget about it, especially when I'm on holiday. And then these two whiteboards behind me are like just where everything goes all the time. But when I went away, I tried to... It's difficult because when you run a community, it's like the Betterman community, you need to be present, you need to be there, but at the same time, you can't be engaging with the work and think that you're taking a break, like you're just cheating yourself. So I completely disengaged for about 14 days, and I started to feel a bit guilty almost. But now I'm back, and I know I can give more of myself. I can give more fully of my creativity and my authenticity and what I want to bring to the table than if I was trying to take a break but trying to still engage. So I'd rather just do one thing and do it well.
And just while we're talking about that, do you, a lot of people out there that have these kind of communities or their own sort of niche that they're into, what is your advice? Do you just tell the community, listen, guys, I'm going to be AWOL for a little while? Or do you, or how did you manage that sort of time away?
Yeah, so two things. The first thing that is that every year, like the last 2 weeks of the year, I tell everyone that I'm taking a break from writing, because I write right throughout the year, every day of the week. So I'll tell them, this is my last email. You're not going to receive anything for the next 2 weeks. I'm taking a break. You're taking a break. And then the second thing is, the cool thing about having a community is that there's a lot of user-generated content that comes through. So even though you're taking a step back, there are still things happening. And almost all I ended up doing was just moderating. So if there was anything that didn't really tie into the values of the community, I would delete that. But otherwise, I would just engage like any normal user would do. I was just part of the community. I wasn't leading the community for that period of time. And then as soon as you step back in, you just bring new energy to it. But I probably, like in hindsight, could have just told the guys a bit more about like what was happening, that I was taking a bit of a break, but I didn't make it as obvious in the group.
Cool, man. And but so one thing that you touched on there, which I think is really important, and I guess someone in your space that is a really busy person is actually saying no to things, and a lot of people kind of struggle with that. How do you say no to certain things? Because I can imagine you get quite a lot of offers to do things and participate in events and whatnot.
So two words that come to mind. Number one is thoughtful. Number two is meaningful. And so thoughtful ties back to self-awareness. So what is it that I want to accomplish? What's important to me? And knowing that, you have X amount of time per day, you have X amount of energy per day, and how you spend that is going to ultimately influence your entire life. So that's really important. And then meaningful, meaning that you want to have an impact on the world. Like whatever work that you're doing, it's about creating meaning in your own life and in the lives of others. And then you can evaluate when things come in and decide, is this going to add meaning? Is it going to add meaning to my life, to the other person's life, and to the people around me? So those are the sort of the two biggest criteria. But I'm quite a big fan of operating from principles, and I'm quite a big fan of people devising their own operating principles. So, like if you go through a list of how to do things better, how to say no more often, you'll get 100 different ways to go about that. But ultimately, I think people need to sit down and say, which values, which principles are important to me, and then when I have those couple, like not those 20, 30 principles, those like handful of principles that are really important, then I can evaluate everything that comes through my life and measure it against these principles and then say yes or no. It just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting, and it's quite a good way to lead into things. When you talk about principles, I think it's quite a big part of like South African society and upbringing. It's in a way, I don't know. I always look at South Africans because I've lived overseas for a long time now, and I think we're brought up with really good values, really good manners, and like I said, principles too. So, as part of the podcast, we love to get to know a bit more about our guests and what actually sort of makes you the man you are today. So, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing? You're born in Cape Town, but then it sounds like you obviously moved to Joburg at some point. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I'll give you the highlight reel. So born in Cape Town, then I think my parents moved to Potchefstroom, and then they moved to Griquastad, if you know where that is. Just outside of Kimberley. My dad's a pastor, so then I think when I was about grade 1, he got a new offer in Springs, which is East Rand. Deep east, and then stayed there until end of matric. At the age of 19, I went to Pretoria. I started doing biokinetics, and then did that for a year. And then following that, I got into physiotherapy. So like I was actually going to do physiotherapy from the beginning, but I decided on it a little bit late. So the only thing I could get into that stage was biokinetics, and I thought it would be a good bridge between what I wanted to do and sort of the situation I was dealt. So did that and got into physio the next year. Came to Joburg for that, and yeah, pretty much been in Joburg ever since. The only like small exception there is when I finished my 4 years of physio, you have to do a year ComServe, and I went to Pretoria for that. So it's pretty much been Springs, Joburg, Pretoria, and then most of it being in Joburg. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Also my PDM through Wits Business School, currently doing my master's through Wits Business School, and that's the highlight reel.
So if you've got a community called Betterman, obviously, and For the Thinking Man. Would you consider yourself a thinker as a youngster? Were you someone that was thinking out of the box? Were you already somewhat of a leader when you were younger? Did you have these traits, or was that something that you sort of grew into?
It's a good question. I think there's always been a leadership component in my life. Primary school, I was deputy head boy. High school, I was head boy. And I think that's always been a theme in my life, probably because of my dad, who, leader of a congregation. So probably drawing from that. But the thinker part only came later, I would say. I've always been academically inclined. I've always wanted to learn, and I've always been good at learning. But to really, I think, go beyond that, you need to start questioning what you're learning. And I'd say that really only started for me after I finished my community service year. And I started wondering, like, now that I've qualified as a physiotherapist, does this mean I have to be a physiotherapist for the rest of my life? Does it mean that I can't be an entrepreneur, a speaker, a coach? Like, we finish studies, and often like we just get pigeonholed. That's just like, this is what you're going to do. And that goes, the same goes for religion. You grow up one specific way of doing things. You never put your values, principles, like all of that. So I think I only started questioning things in my life really around probably about 2011. And since then, I've been a lot more critical about the information I consume, and the way I write, and the way I just interpret the world around me. Like, there's this duality to everything, right? Like, everything has a positive and a negative. And it's so easy to just let your confirmation bias like run amok, and you just look for everything that just confirms your view of the world. But I think it's important to challenge yourself, to challenge your thinking. And yeah, actually for me, it actually kicked in a bit later than I thought.
Oh, cool.
And what sort of questions were you asking yourself? Like, what were you questioning?
The biggest thing I think was whether I could be something else, be someone else. Like I say, 4 years of like, this is what you study for. And then you do your year of ComServe, and then you go out into the world, and now you're a physio. That's your label. That's who you are. And it's about like more than just what you do, because this becomes your identity. And then to say to people like, well, I used to be interested in that, but now there are other things that are more interesting to me. There are other things that are more meaningful to me. And that's actually who I want to be and what I want to be. But they still perceive you as a physio, So I think the biggest question was, how do I change that perception of who I am? And how do I change from who I am to who I actually want to be? I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's fine. I mean, I guess I was going to, ask, you mentioned religion there, and your dad being a pastor, and then you were talking about questioning things. Was that something that you questioned? Was religion something you questioned?
I think religion is something I'll always question. I'll always question anything where I can't have concrete evidence, where you can't go beyond telling me that you have to have faith in this, because faith is it's intangible, and it's easily torn apart as an argument. So I'll always question things where you can't tell me, like, let's look at this. This is observable. Like we've done studies about this. And even then, like we've had so many times where, especially nutrition, for example, where we do studies and then later on it gets reversed again. So, I think the questioning part of it is not necessarily about, it's not criticism, but it's an openness to learning and openness to being wrong and to saying, I'll believe what I believe and until I get new information. And if it changes or contradicts what I believe, I'm open to a new point of view. So I'm answering that a bit indirectly, but yes, it has been part of what I've questioned.
That's interesting. Does it? How does that impact your, say, relationship with your dad? Does it? Is he also open to discussing these sort of things?
I think as he's gotten older, he is. But yeah, when it comes to religion and nutrition, people are, it's not something that you debate quite often.
Yeah, totally.
That's something that people really, really are so dogmatic about. So I think majority of the world just aren't open to those kind of discussions.
Yeah.
They just want to believe what they want to believe, and that is just it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but it's so, I'm the exact same as you, I've questioned absolutely everything, and Craig as well. And it's funny how people do get really, I guess, set in their ways and dogmatic, and they're not open to discussing things. And it's, one thing that you mentioned now as well, it's really important to be aware of people's worldviews and their perspective, because you need to understand where they're coming from, but lots of people aren't. And it's kind of like the ego just gets completely in the way of things and stops themselves from growing in a way.
It's a big one. Ego is a very big one. But yeah, and I've also just, I guess, as I've gone on this journey with this openness, I've learned that, the energy expended to try and change someone's mind is just not worth it.
So, Erik, just taking it back a little bit, as someone that works with people when you were as a physiotherapist and you went to study physiotherapy, have you always been sort of a people's person, or what sort of triggered you to get into that field, or what motivated you to do that?
So I think I've always known that I'll work with people. I can't really pinpoint a specific stage where that happened for me. And then I remember sort of towards matric, now you have to start deciding what are you going to do with the rest of your life. It's that moment. And I went to physio, sprained my ankle playing rugby, went to a physio, and I thought this is pretty cool. Like, you get to work with people, and at that stage, probably wasn't the most ethical practice, because you would get one guy on a machine and then move on to the next guy, get him onto a machine, move on to the next guy, get him onto a machine. But I thought it was pretty cool that you could help someone through injury. And so that was going to be, at least at that point I decided that's where I'm going to go. But then as you just get more involved in it, I think your love for people grow, and you want to do more, and you find meaning in it. It's really been a big theme for me, is just how do I do things that are more meaningful in my life? And knowing that, at some point I passed the 3,000 patient mark and then the 4,000 patient mark, and to think that you've impacted that many lives. And pretty much the same with what I'm doing online now is, you can it's exponential in that sense that you impact 1,000 people, and those people go out and they impact one person each. All of a sudden it's 2,000 people, and it's like your impact just grows. And the more I do that, and the more I spend time with people, the more I realize that is what gives meaning to our lives, is serving and helping others. So I guess it was there was no real specific spark that this was the moment for me, but it just sort of snowballed once I got into physio and into seeing the results that came from it.
So what I'm understanding is the impetus wasn't necessarily physiotherapy, had nothing really to do with physiotherapy. You had always just had a need to sort of want to contribute and be around people. And so that was just one avenue to maybe do that. And now you find yourself in a way where you're actually able to help maybe more people and in a different way. So that's really actually quite cool.
Yeah, and probably my parents had a lot to do with that as well. They both servants essentially. My mom was a psychologist, so she spent all of her time talking to people, helping them through difficult things. Dad's a pastor, spends all his time trying to get people to where he thinks is a good place for them. So, yeah.
Nice.
And so that's obviously, I guess, the catalyst for Betterman. How did you just sort of come up with this idea, and why specifically Betterman, and and not in other people as well? Was there a particular reason for that?
So I'll answer that first. There was no real reason. At the stage when I founded Betterman, I've never tried to be overly creative with my name. So at that stage, I was just thinking I would like to go to bed every night a better man than when I woke up in that morning. And so that was it. So I was like, better man, easy. That'll be the name of this thing. But really, to understand where better man came from, I had to take you back like a little bit. So just after I just decided that physio wasn't really going to be the thing for me that I wanted to do for the rest of my life, my friend introduced me to like websites, and the fact that anyone can make a website, and that through this website you can reach thousands of people. And I decided, well, if this is it's this accessible, I want to give it a bash. And I decided, I think back then, the very first website that I tried to like sort of get off the ground was a directory, because that seemed like the lowest hanging fruit. Website, you tell people about it, they'll come and list on your site, and you charge them X amount per month, and like you're making lots of money. But I got shiny object syndrome, and I had like all of these ideas, and every idea I had, I wanted to create a website and get it out there into the world and be uber successful with it. And about 40 domains later, I got to Betterman, because I just got to the point where like I had all these dead domains. It was like a whole graveyard full with websites and domains, and I realized that I need to focus on something somewhere. And what I've been doing is I've been trying to almost force something meaningful and purposeful in my life. But then instead of just focusing on what's important to me, which is self-development, which is being a better man every day. So almost the starting point of Better Man was a bit selfish, because I thought I'll interview successful men, I'll hear what makes them successful, I'll build my network in the process. But really, I'm bettering myself. And then once it got out there into the world, men started resonating with it. And I realized pretty soon that actually this is, again, like I can be of service. I can be of value to others. And so since then, it's just, it's grown massively.
And did that sort of happen organically, that just other men would be like interested in the kind of stuff that you were discussing, or so taking a step back, you were interested in certain things, and then you basically were like, wow, I want to learn more about that. But then you would put it up on the website, for example, stuff that you were learning, and other people would come to that and go like, wow, that's actually really interesting for me. And that organically, and because of the name, I suppose, just drew men that were interested in that kind of vibe.
So, the most interesting thing, and we were speaking about it offline a little bit, two things that I learned in this journey was the importance of niching down. So like when I started talking about the things that I was interested in, I realized that I was niching down in two ways. Like the first was my audience was just men. So that was great. And then the second thing was that my topics were very specific to self-development. So I didn't try and go the men's health route and say, let's talk about everything. Like let's talk about dressing and health and relationships and whatever. Like this was a very specific focus on me. Like who do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish? And in the period like of maybe the first 2 years, I did have content out there about health, and I did have content out there about relationships. But I realized that like it didn't get the traction, because guys were coming there with a very specific idea that this was about bettering me. So just not the things around me, but just me. My mindset, my thinking. So that's also part of the thinking man, it's about what's up here. Like there are many other sites where you can get an authoritative view on how to build a better body or how to build better relationships. But I didn't want to be everything to everyone. And then maybe just as a side note, very little of Betterman's growth has been organic. And I'll tell you, the biggest reason I think is that we just live in a world where there's just so much noise out there. Like there's just so many people creating content every day, and it all gets blasted onto social media all of the time. And to think that the good content will rise to the top is just, it's not going to happen. So part of that interim between physio and me becoming like the founder of Betterman was that I was just super interested in digital marketing every day of my life, trying to understand copywriting and how to run AdWords and Facebook ads and understanding marketing and understanding branding. So by the time I got to Betterman, I was really good at those things. And because of that, it helped me to position Betterman very quickly and to get traction very quickly because I knew how to pay for eyeballs and which eyeballs to pay for.
And so you had kind of taught yourself along the way, like you had like a someone that had been mentoring you along that journey, or was that literally just like, hours of fiddling and learning?
Yeah, no, just all experimenting, just me, myself. But it's been, so I always said, like, if you came to me during that time for any physio treatment, I'm really sorry, because I was probably a very horrible physio, because all of my time was just spent on being a better digital marketer. And when the time came around for like CPD points, I would just sort of cram them in at the end of the year just so I can meet my quota. But my interest was just completely shifted to digital marketing. And so that's where I spend all of my time. And I mean, the resources out there for this kind of thing is just, it's immense. You can find it anywhere. And if you're willing to pay for a bit, there are, you can literally teach yourself anything online.
But besides testing these things on yourself, like, were there any sort of initial people that you started helping out as well?
Yeah, for a little bit, I actually ran a digital marketing agency. Just because it kind of felt natural, like I was doing well on my own, so let me help other people as well. And I think I ran that for about 8 months, and then just realized I didn't like the model of it, because like customers would say, like, we paying for Facebook ads, and we want to see like conversion straight away. And they didn't understand the life cycle that people need to go through, or the experiences, or their emotions, or the different touch points that people need to go through before they make a purchase. And I've really come to understand that now that I have my own platform. And people think, well, we'll come and post something on your platform. You have 17,000 men. Like, I'm definitely going to sell things. I'm like, no, you're not going to sell things, because sure, there's going to be X amount of people who might be looking for what you are selling at this specific point. But really, when you're selling online, it's about building trust. It's about building interest. It's about giving it time so that people actually become accustomed to. So I'm going to backtrack. You want to provide value, and you want to ultimately get people to buy something, right? And a lot of brands don't understand that, and they want to come into your group where, like, you've been adding value. They haven't been adding value, but you've been adding value, and they think that we're going to come in, we're going to put something there, and then because of that, people are going to buy it. But you haven't built that relationship, and that's really what I was sort of trying to get to. But yeah, so in the meantime, I want to say, like, I freelance as a consultant, and I try and help as many people as I can, especially like new bloggers and new content creators. I love spending time with them, just trying to help them understand how difficult it actually is to get your voice heard. Because the content creation part is the easy part. But you need to persevere. You need to stick around long enough. Most of the blogs that started at the same time when I started Betterman aren't around anymore. And it's a difficult game. So I do enjoy spending time with people, helping them to understand the digital sphere a little bit better.
And Bud, so does it get to a point where you don't really need to focus on say the digital marketing side of things, because you have such a big following that is engaged, and therefore it starts becoming more organic?
So I'd say yes and no. On the one hand, obviously, as your audience grows or as your community grows, it does become easier to get traction on products that you want to sell. It does become easier because people are referring friends to the community all the time. But having said that, at some point last year, I realized that I've actually forgotten that people are still people, and we still need to sell to them. Like, I know it sounds kind of strange, but you still need to sell to them the reason why they need to be with you. And you can never take for granted the fact that at one point they said, yes, I want to join you, I want to follow you, I want to be a part of this thing. You can't just say, well, they've done that, they've made that commitment. You need to reinforce it all the time. And I often look at guys like James Altucher, or even Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk. They have a community. They have massive, huge communities. But when they sell, they do hard selling, right? They are like literally telling you, buy this thing, and they'll use persuasive copy. And especially James Altucher, like, he'll use persuasive copy. Like, some of his stuff actually feels quite tacky to me. But he realizes that no matter how big his audience has become, how big his community has become, you still need to tap into emotion when you're selling. You still need to tap into emotion when you're trying to get people to take action, no matter what it is, when you're signing up for a newsletter or being a part of your community. So I think you always have to have a digital marketer thought process running in the back of your mind. People first, obviously, always people first. But then in the back of your mind, keep in mind that, if you have a service or a product that's going to help this person, even though you have the relationship, you still have to sell to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of first of all, I don't think it's necessarily easy, especially for a lot of people, I think if you want to help, genuinely want to help, people might feel as though the sales pitch is sort of like, you say, like, oh, it's a bit awkward because I actually do want to help. You still have to make the close. It's not good enough just to high five and go, we're all happy and whatever, unfortunately. But I think what you said about humans first, people first, is so important, because even if you look at it like in terms of like neurology, people won't be engaging with you if they're like suspicious of you, And so you first have to gain their trust over time before you can even think about selling something. So then you might as well do it with like real good intention, because people, I think, more and more are getting better at like sniffing out the BS, you know what I mean? So you have to spend that time and be there consistently, and then the trust is built. And then I suppose if you really are putting the right content out that people want, then why not,
And ultimately, it takes a lot of time to create that content. And I know that, for me, it's always in the back of my mind. So you were saying, like, while you were on holiday, were you working? And sure, I wasn't sitting down and writing, but in the back of my mind, I was still thinking about ideas. I was still thinking about so it's always time consuming, and something needs to pay for that at the end of the day. So content creation is great, but ultimately you have to sell certain products and services to make it worth your while. And I think if you've built those relationships and people understand who you are and what your intentions are and what your values are, then they understand that, what you are doing is to serve them. And if you're making like a killing on the sideline, they don't actually care, because you are still thinking of them first.
Yeah. And so what was the crossover point for you? So when you were doing physio and you had Betterman going on the side, like how did Betterman start, say, earning you cash to make that decision to stop being a physio?
So I've tried so many. So when I started and I had all these different domains, I had shiny object syndrome in terms of like different ideas every time. So vastly different ideas. So the ones would be, let me start a directory website. Then the next would be, I had a girlfriend at the time who was a model, and I thought, well, let me start a website for her that we can teach other girls how to be good models and not like be extorted by the industry. And then I thought, well, let me create a site for freelancers. So like there were vastly different ideas, different levels of expertise required. But then once I started Betterman, now I had like focus and I had this niche. And then inside of that, I started having shiny object syndrome as well. I was just testing different ideas all the time. So we tried selling courses, because that was a popular thing to do online. We've tried like putting content behind a paywall. I've had different membership sort of sites. I've had masterminds. I've had like lots of different things that we've done over the years. And then as the community grew, the guys were saying, listen, we want to connect offline as well. We actually want to go and have a beer together. So in 2016, in May 2016, we said, okay, let's put on an event. And it was the first event. We did it in Bryanston at Landmark Bar. Remy Martin came on, not as a sponsor, but to do a alcohol thing for the night, a tasting for the night with their cognacs. And I had the guy from Dad, his name is Craig Wilkinson, so he's an author, and he came and he was going to be our guest speaker for the night. And we had about 50 guys who showed up for the event. And it was pretty cool. Like, I really enjoyed it. I got to speak in front of people for the first time in a very long time. And we connected, and it was just an awesome night. We left there at 2:00 after finishing some whiskeys and cigars. And then after that, I thought, okay, that was pretty cool, but I'm just never doing it again. Like, that was just the effort and the stress, because now that there was a tangible measure of success or failure, because if guys didn't buy tickets and only 10 guys show up, like, it's going to suck. So luckily we sold out. And then I said no more. And then about August or so, a brand actually approached us and said, like, would you like to do an event with us? And I was like, hell yes, because now they were going to pay. And we did, I think, 3 in 2017. And then in 2018, the calendar was booked out with brands who were willing to pay to sponsor the event and then have like some of their products and stuff there. So we've had Mont Blanc, we've had Ferrari fragrances. We've had Hugo Boss, Dunhill. So it's been pretty cool. Like, it's a nice match because it's something that guys are really interested in, and it gives the brand exposure to their target market. And that's really, so I guess that's where the big crossover happened for me, was the beginning of this year with all the events that we were doing. And then also just this year was the first year where I was speaking to Craig, but while we had intermission,
Intermission.
and saying that it's sort of like, this is sort of the first year where I've really fully stepped into my role as a leadership coach and personal development coach, because now I'm also doing my master's in it, and it's been the year where I finally felt okay with the label of coach. Whereas before, I've always felt like, but can I call myself a coach yet? Like, am I just like any other coach on the internet who like does a weekend and then calls himself a life coach or whatever? But doing my master's this year and all the experience over the past 3 years with Betterman, I finally felt that this is sort of the point where I'm now ready to step into it, to coach, to speak in front of people. And I think that has just been a big part of it for me. The biggest talk that I did this year was in front of 600 people at a book launch for one of my friends. And it was just so liberating to be on a stage with 3 guys who were all part of Shark Tank in South Africa. And I'm sharing a stage with them, and I'm sharing it as an equal. And I'm not the entertainment. I'm not the opening act. I'm there as a part of these sort of big names. And it felt great. So there was definitely an emotional shift, a mindset shift, but then also just a lot of validation for like the event.
Wow, that must have been quite. It's a massive thing for you. Like on some level, I'd imagine you must have been pretty stoked. Like, there you are. Like, wow, it must have been a great feeling, hey.
So like when we committed to the events this year, I think we did. Last year we did 3, and then this year we've done 11 events. And the most speaking that I've been doing has obviously been in my own event, and the events range anything from like a very small, intimate 30 guy sort of event to about 60, 70 guys per event. And it's been like daunting at times to speak in front of my own crowd. And so it was really interesting speaking in front of 600 people all of a sudden, going from like literally like tenfold the audience. But it was just awesome. It was an incredible experience, and I felt okay, and I felt excited and comfortable on stage. And I realized how it was just an accumulation of all those small events and preparing myself, and how that eventually sort of culminated in this awesome event and me just feeling like I belong.
Erik, can I just ask you there? I could imagine that it could be quite almost more nerve-wracking to do the talk in front of your real, like your followers that are out there with a smaller group than, let's say, a big group of, some of them being your specific followers, some of them will come to see other people. Is that true? Is that how it is? Because I guess when you're chatting to people that have followed every word, they really know you well. They're like really, they're hanging on every word you're saying. I would imagine that's almost even more pressure than the big crowd.
I think the most pressure comes from the fact that when you have a smaller crowd, they're less likely to engage as much, because people are so aware of themselves all the time. There's this word I'm looking for. It's not at the tip of my tongue. Self-conscious. That's what I'm looking for. They're so self-conscious that they don't want to be overly enthused or whatever by what you're saying, and they don't want to ask stupid questions and that whole thing, that whole small like classroom thing. And that makes the engagement a little bit more difficult in my experience. But I think a big shift happened for me this year in terms of just my attitude towards speaking on stage. When I was doing physio, we had to do these OSPs. So like you go in front of the class and you present whatever. And I remembered I would always like try and get the girls in my group to do all the talking. And like if I had to, like I would do like a 30-second, like some rambling on something. I just hated it. And what's always like what you guys have like hopefully gathered by now is that the two things that are really important to me is to really have impact and influence. And I want to have it on a deep level. So I want to really impact people profoundly, help them to change their lives, but I also want it to be wide, meaning that I want to reach as many people as I can. And at some point I realized that a stage is actually a great place to do that from. And when I realized that being on stage can actually help me further my mission in a very meaningful way, I made the change, and I started feeling okay being on stage. So that was a big thing for me to change.
And Bud, just I just want to find a little bit more about, say, the philosophy behind Betterman, and then also just touching on like how it is part of like say the brands that came and sponsored some of your evenings, so you mentioned some like Ferrari and Mont Blanc. It sounds like that's almost like a not superficial thing when it comes to, say, being a better man, but it's like a material thing. So how does like companies like that coming to sponsor your evenings tie in with the better man philosophy? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So I guess when these brands become a part of it, it's seeing that who you are as a better man is a holistic thing, right? And so actually in 2018, I am going to be branching out a little bit more to start including some of the other things that we were talking about. It was really important to niche down initially to understand my audience and to understand the sort of the message that I wanted to get out. But then at some point you have to realize that as a man, and if you are turning to Betterman as an example, like as a source of information, that there's so much more to who we are. And presenting yourself in a professional way, which includes the way you smell, is important. So I think that's the tie-in for me. And what we always try and do with the brands is that when you look at brands, most of them have a really interesting story. I think, which was I want to say Dunhill. Yeah, Dunhill had a really cool story about how the guy grew up, and I'm going to butcher the story, so I'm not going to try, but he had a very interesting and an inspiring story. I wish I could remember the one thing that, there was like this one thing that really stood out for me that obviously I just can't remember at this stage. But we bring the stories of the brands into the conversation. And a lot of the times it's just really inspiring to see that these big brands were built off the back of wars or things like that. So there's that tie-in, but then also just, going out into the world, you want to be confident, you want to look good, you want to smell good, and it's important.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I like what you mentioned about the stories behind it, because I think there's Hugo Boss, if I'm not mistaken, was actually they made the uniforms for the SS, like in the back in the day,
did, yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, you're right. They do have very interesting stories, but you must have had some cool, I guess, success stories out of Betterman. So like guys literally actually, I guess, coming out of their shells or finding themselves, or just feeling a lot better in general. Is there any like cool ones that you're happy to share with us?
No, so I have like from when I can remember, when I got a testimonial from someone, I would just hashtag it in my inbox. So I have a testimonials label for my Gmail inbox, and at the moment it has slightly more than 1,000 testimonials sitting in it. And I really try to only sort of tag the ones that are really deep, that has some real profound change. So like not just a thank you or whatever. And I can't pinpoint to one specific one that really stands out for me. But it's been incredible to see guys who've literally, like I said, that it's changed their lives and it's saved their relationships. It's given them the courage and the confidence to go out and create a new business. It's given them the permission to be who they want to be. And I think that's, it sort of keeps you going, like especially when there isn't much happening, when it feels like you're publishing into the ether, to then get some affirmation back that what you are doing, even though like I'm sitting here, it's so weird. Like you're sitting here in your room and you're typing something and you hit publish and it goes out into the world and you never know like where it gets consumed, where it gets shared, like what happens with it. But then to know that it connected with someone and they actually took those words and they did something with it. That to me is just, it's very inspiring and it's very humbling, and it's I'm so grateful for the opportunity to know that this kind of thing happens from the effort that I put into my work.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome, bud. Like you clearly have a really big heart, and it's really nice to see. It's really nice to see that, and so thank you for that. And actually, it kind of like you said, it's if it's just one person at a time, then that is really like, that's sort of good enough, because if everyone can do that, it will just make the world a better place. And it ties in quite nicely with something that I know that you feel strongly about, and that you've written some really great articles and blogs on, is accretion, if that's the right way to pronounce it.
Perfect.
Cool. Because and do you just want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think there's so much value in that actual word and what it means. So yeah.
Yeah, so it was the first sort of big hit that I had in my writing. And accretion is I remember I was on the web and I read this one quote, and it just sparked something in me about this accretion process, and started reading about it and started to try and contextualize it in the personal development sphere. And accretion, so the definition of it is growth or increase through the gradual accumulation of additional layers. So that's the formal definition of it. But the way they describe it in terms of astrophysics is that you have this big piece of rock that's floating somewhere in space, and this piece of rock has its own pull, right? Its own gravitational pull, and it's proportional to its size. And so because of that, it pulls like all these smaller particles onto it. And then as these smaller particles adhere to it and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, its gravitational pull becomes bigger, and therefore it can attract bigger things onto it. And so it just keeps going. And eventually, over millions of years, you end up with a star or a planet. And I thought it's just such an awesome way of thinking about the way that we approach life, the way that we approach business, the way that we approach success, where we live in a world and everyone has this quick fix mentality, and we want to have these overnight successes. And I was speaking to someone today who said to me, I'm going to launch a Patreon account, and I'm be super successful within a couple of days. And I was like, you don't know the hard work that it takes to like build the audience who's going to support you with this. And it's about ultimately the small decisions in our lives. And it's about knowing that the small decisions accumulate, and they will either lead you to greatness or they will lead you to mediocrity. And one of my favorite quotes is from Todd Brown, and he says that no one charts a course to mediocrity, yet it's a destination of choice. And that to me, like when I read that, it's so profound. No one charts a course to mediocrity, yet it's a destination of choice. It's chosen in small ways over time. And these tiny, seemingly inconsequential accumulations eventually result in a state of crisis. And it's so true. Those small decisions accumulate, and they will either accumulate in a positive way or in a negative way. And every day we get to decide, what are we going to do? Are you going to lie on the couch, or are you going to go train? And sometimes it needs to be, I'm going to go train. And sometimes it needs to be, I'm going to take the day off and just recover. It's all about the context, but those small decisions will ultimately lead you somewhere. And because you are in control of them, it means that you are also in control of the destination. So that's what accretion in a nutshell is about.
It's really interesting. I'd only ever heard of accretion discs with relating to black holes.
Yes.
So I really loved the analogy in words, which is really, really cool. And, I think it's so true what you're saying.
Craig, as a side note, I remember publishing this, and then a dude read it, and I think he is an astrophysicist. And he said to me, listen, this isn't how it happens, but I appreciate the analogy, and I'll let you get away with it. So
let's go. Cool.
Don't fact check. That's part of it.
Classic.
This is like a metaphorical accretion of.
There we go.
What I was going to say was
definitely some truth in it. Go Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly. You said belief systems earlier, and I think it's so cool because I think when you question beliefs lead to like decisions lead to habits then lead to basically becomes your character. That's who you actually are and who you become. And so there's this trickle down effect of, and it all starts with having an inquiring mind. And that's why I like the way, your thought process of thinking. But just talking about that and the mind and I find that kind of stuff obviously very fascinating. When I say the glass is half full, that's kind of like, mindset, in my mind. But I don't actually even know what is a mindset coach and how does that tie into being a better person?
So I think coaching just in general. So whether you are a leadership coach, a mindset coach, executive coach, I think a coach's job is to be your mirror. And when you say, this glass is half full, why? Why do you perceive this glass to be half full? Why is that important to you? What does it mean to you? And when you have that mirror that's being held up to you and you start thinking about it, you realize, it's because of this, because I can be grateful, because this is going well in my life. And all of a sudden you start seeing the bright spots and you can really start focusing on them and working on it even more and getting your glasses eventually to be overflowing. Or if the glass is half empty, why? What makes you feel it's half empty? What would half full look like? And all of a sudden you can really start thinking about the experience that you are having, right? I think it was Martin Seligman said, was it him? One of the big psychologists said that human beings are meaning-making machines. And as a coach, it's your job then to question that meaning. Like, why are you assigning this meaning to this experience? Why are you assigning this meaning to this object or this person? And once you can go through that process and question that again, then you could change your mind and you can have a positive shift and you can actually be more effective, more productive, more happy, whatever you want to be. So to me, that's the job of any coach, irrespective of the little blurb that you put in front of that.
And Erik, it's really interesting what you just said there, and it just made me think a little bit. So as a coach, then basically you're just asking people like why they think what they're thinking, and where it ties in with like my experiences here. I spent a few months in India, and one of the guys I spoke to, who was my meditation coach, a teacher, he said the answer is always within. So basically, I guess, like, as a coach, you kind of know that, and you just kind of trying to draw it out of the person. Everybody knows deep down what they need to do or what the right answer is, but they don't always want to sort of face the reality or can't always find it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We all have our blind spots, and that's why it's important to have someone to actually hold that mirror up to you. There's a phrase called the introspection fallacy. It's something like that, introspection fallacy, which essentially just says that we all have a limit to how deep we can go in introspection. So if I told you, like, go think about your values, go think about the goals you want to achieve, go think about how effective you've been in this year and how you could have done it better, you can go and sit and you can, through introspection, get quite deep with it. If you are intentional with it, you can get quite deep. But then to go deeper, I think you need someone to be there with you, to ask you those questions, to prompt you, to see the things that you aren't seeing, to show you your blind spots. And that is what coaching is great for. But it's also knowing that you have the answer inside of you. Like, if you go read Coaching 101, like, it'll say that your coachee, your client, knows everything they need to know. It's just hidden, you know. So like you say, like, they are a complete human being. It's your job to just invest in them, but they are complete. They know what they need to do. But we all bring different levels of expertise and different like sets of knowledge to the table. So coaching is also saying, listen, you've gone through this, but also don't play the victim. Like, I can see you playing the victim. And then once you've made someone aware of something like that, you don't need to go deeper. You don't need to preach to them. Then you put it back in their court and you say, now that you know this, do you resonate with it? Do you see it in your life? How does it play out? So I do think that a coach needs to be careful when they introduce concepts, when they try and label things, or when they almost switch into the role of mentor. And knowing that there's that small line between, am I coaching or am I being a mentor, or am I even trying to play therapist? You know, so you need to know the differences there. Some coaches, obviously coaching came from sports, right? And in sports coaching, you tell your player what to do. You tell them to go there. This is the formation. This is how you run. I had this one coach who, like, no matter how straight I thought I was running in rugby, like I was an inside center, no matter how straight I thought I was, he would always tell me, more straight. Like, you need to straighten out the line. And I thought, like, geez, I don't know how much straighter I could run. But that's what they do, is they tell you. And mindset, leadership, executive coaching is all about then saying or asking, and if it's appropriate, introducing a concept and saying, what do you think of that?
So Socratic questioning and that kind of thing is where it's all at, is like,
pretty much
ask to get the answers. You need to ask the right questions, and so you've probably become really good at just understanding what kind of questions to ask to lead them to go, now I see what you mean. And then they've come up with it. When someone's actually said it, they viscerally understand it. Or sorry, if they've kind of come up with the answer, they get it, versus if you taught and just explained. People don't always get that, I suppose.
And, you know, anyone who's ever tried to counsel a friend who's gone through a breakup will know that no matter what you tell that person, like, no matter the advice you give, it doesn't matter. You know, it's all about the deep understanding that you have of yourself. And, like, or let's even go before the breakup. Someone is so bad for your friend. You can see it. Everyone can see it. And you can tell them that, but they need to get to that point themselves where they realize, wow, this is really a toxic relationship, a bad thing in my life. Until then, no matter what you tell them, it's not going to change anything. And we were talking about, you know, intermission, about Trump, and about how data doesn't change minds. And so to think that as a coach, you are going to tell someone and try and solve their problems for them, it's not going to work. You need to help them get to the point where they can see the problem and they can see the action, and then they will be more committed to actually taking action with it.
You must run into some hurdles, surely, because lots of people are not necessarily open to kind of what you tell them. So how do you deal that? How do you deal with that? How do you manage it?
So the biggest thing is I've stopped giving advice altogether. When I do coaching, like, because I do a lot of reading and because I am quite principled in the way that I live my life, I'll often talk about those principles and I'll see how they respond to it and how they'll whether they could see the value in adding it to their lives. But it's never me telling them to do this. But more importantly, I think as a coach, you need to know who's coachable and who's not. So, we typically do like a 15-minute sort of get together and just to see whether this person has a good understanding of what coaching is. Because if you're coming to me looking for the answers, then it doesn't make sense for us to go any further because you're going to be disappointed and I'm not going to deliver on what you want me to deliver on. If it's something more tangible, because coaching can be quite intangible, right? But if it's more tangible, like digital marketing coaching, we can sit down and have a quick discussion and I can tell you, listen, I know from experience, go and do X, Y, and Z and like you'll probably get better engagement. And you can go and do those things and you can track them. But often with coaching, it's a process. Like if we talk about like your beliefs and your values and trying to overcome challenges and obstacles, it's a process that you have to go through. And that process can take weeks. And so it might feel like initially you're not creating any traction or momentum, but towards the end, you start seeing the results. You start seeing a change in your life. And even then, it's not that you've been able to measure it out on paper, but you can just feel it's different. So I think client selection ultimately is very important and making sure that you align the expectations that you have of coaching with the expectations that your client has of coaching.
And do you ever, like, because you're still quite young, do you ever face issues with guys that are a lot older? And then secondly, I'm assuming you're now coaching maybe not just guys but ladies as well, and what's the difference that you're finding in terms of the coaching that you need to give?
Yeah, good questions. So regarding the elder guys, I think if you've been in my sphere of influence, if you've been in contact with my content and listened to my interviews and things like that, you'll understand that I have a certain level of expertise because this is literally just what I base my life on. Like every day, these are the things that we write about, talk about. So even though you're older than I am and you have more experience in a specific field, I have more experience in another field. And sure, I'm 33, but it doesn't discount the work that I've done. It doesn't discount the stages I've been on. So I think a lot of those guys already understand that I do have a certain skill set that I bring to the table. So I've never really encountered. I find that the older gents, for example, are a bit more stubborn. Harder to change their ways. But I've had discussions with 50, 60-year-olds who've found tremendous value in the discussions that we've had. That have walked away feeling like they could actually go and still make certain changes in their lives, even though before they were feeling a bit hopeless or they were in despair. And like even through the emails, a lot of the guys who read the emails are a bit older, and a lot of them have emailed me back saying that they have found tremendous value in it. So granted that it's not a big part of what I do, but it is there, and at least I think it's all about, again, that relationship. How do you come to me? Like if you just randomly found me on the internet, called me up as your coach, and we meet somewhere and you're like, wow, this dude is so much younger than I thought, you might be a bit despondent at first, a bit resistant, but hopefully after speaking to me for a bit, you'll see that, this guy knows something about like what I'm trying to work through. But if you've already been part of my world and you've received my emails, then it's almost a non-factor. It doesn't really matter. And then to talk about the woman, so this was the first year that I ever coached women, and I've never coached women outside of my master's, because it's funny, when I did my physio degree, we were 3 guys in a group of 50,
Wow.
And then I went into my master's now, and we are 2 guys in a group of 30. So for the first time, I had to actually coach women, and it was an interesting experience. It's definitely different because I think women are more open to talking about just what's happening in their lives, and I find that they come to the session and they want to talk, and men come to the session and they want to be talked at. They want to know what they should just go and do. But then, having said that, once guys get to a comfortable point where, because it's very liberating when you get to talk about what you are thinking about. We don't do that often enough, and journaling is a great way of doing that. But ultimately, you need to actually have a space where you can just talk about what you are feeling, what you are thinking about. Not only does it help to solidify the lessons that you've learned, the information that you've consumed, but it also just helps you to actually, like, when you hear your own voice and you can hear what you're thinking about, like, it changes the way that you perceive what's happening in your world. So once guys actually go through that, they love it. They love the fact that they can get into a space, they can talk about something, think through something properly, and then go out and take action with it. So I think that to me is the main difference. Talking versus being talked at.
I would imagine with the ladies, you kind of got to be very cautious of mansplaining. So with regards to coaching and that and mentorship, you mentioned that as well. Who and what are the kind of things that influence you on a day-to-day basis or have over the years? And do you have or utilize coaches and have or use or have had mentors in the past?
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah. So coaching pretty much ongoing, probably about a year, because I really believe that there's just immense value in it, and I launched a new community called BetterX, and BetterX is really all about being better at the things that matter to you. So it got to the point where guys were labeling me again as the guy from Betterman. And when a company would ask me to come and speak there, they would say, well, are you able to speak to women? And I'd be like, yes, I can speak to women. But they just had this idea that the kind of better man can just speak to men. So part of the reason why I founded BetterX was to also be able to speak to the broader audience, men and women. But leading up to that, I was actually doing a lot of coaching with my own coach, trying to understand whether this is a good move or not. And the only reason I was able to launch it and within about a day get to 2,800 members was because I felt like I really understood why I'm doing this, and I'm really committed to doing this. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to give it my best shot, because I've done the thought process, all the thought processing up front, and I was ready to do it. So yeah, coaching for me is ongoing. Mentors, I've never really formalized any mentor arrangements, but I'm very fortunate to have a lot of really clever people in my life that I try and schedule time with. And definitely 2018, that's something I'm going to be even more vigilant about. At least having one conversation with, like one of my boards here, actually, that one there has a couple of names on it at the moment, that I just said to myself, every week, one of these guys, and if it means that I only get to speak to one of them once a month, that's fine. But at least you're making the time to connect, but also to talk about business and talk about everything else that's happening. And then things that influence me on a daily basis, I think it's just mainly the specific content that I consume. So I try and, as much as possible, stick to like high quality information and not just sort of bounce around on the internet reading random things. And in 2018, I actually want to read fewer books. Just get to better books and read them more thoroughly. Because I find often that we consume so much, but we don't actually recall a lot of it. And if you can't recall a lot of it, then how effective was it really? How much did you implement that into your life? So I'm starting to sort of curate some of the books that I have here that I want to reread, and then just be very intentional with reading it and specifically applying those things in my life just a lot more thoughtfully.
Yeah, that's so it's classic because Craig and I were literally having this sort of same conversation, like a couple of weeks ago. I literally think we need to treat books like we treat, say, textbooks when we're studying, and you got like take notes and remember things and learn them, because there are so many lessons when you in so many great books that you probably just always forget because you just read the book without really taking stock of what it's saying. Yeah, so out of interest then, like what books are you planning on reading in 2018 if you have a list already?
So they actually, I can't recall them now because they're lying there in my study. I can tell you that Ryan Holiday's Perennial Seller is definitely on the list. I always read Seth Godin, The Dip, at least once a year anyway, and The Alchemist once a year. And then I also have, it's a book on Stoicism that is lying there, also a Ryan Holiday book that I just really love, Stoicism. There's a book by David Mader. Not the journal though. There's another one.
Yeah, this is the
yeah,
journal.
that's
yeah.
And then let me quickly just open my Kindle here and just see, because I added some of them there as well. There's a book by David Mader called The Superior Man. I don't know if you guys have read it.
No.
Yeah, so it's really good. The Way of the Superior Man.
Oh, The Way of the Superior Man. I haven't read it yet. It's on my list as well.
It's really cool. It gets a bit weird and a bit meta at some point. I gave it to my dad because I read the first 5 chapters. And I thought, wow, this is really good stuff. And I went and I bought 5 copies and I gave it to people, and I gave one to my dad. And then I got home and I started reading a bit more. And then at some point, this dude starts getting very graphic and very deep into things about sex. And I was like, oh, jeez, I just gave this book to my dad. And if I knew all the content and I gave it to him face to face, I would have blushed. But, it's a very good book though, from just understanding a bit of the differences between men and women, and how to show a bit more authentically as a man. And then I do want to read Anti-Fragile again as well, from Nassim. I remember reading it at some point, but I feel like, like you were saying, I probably skimmed over too much, and there were a lot of things that I could have gained from it a bit more. So that's on the list as well. Then I'm also reading a book on Buddhism, Plain and Simple. That's what it's called. Also very cool. And then, regarding the rereading, I'm not quite sure which other ones will make it to the list just yet. It's still being compiled. Obstacle is the Way. That's the one I was actually trying to get at. It's the Ryan Holiday book.
Yeah.
Is this all the list for 2018?
The list is still being compiled. I can't say that it's done just yet.
This is the short list for now.
This is just the rereads, the ones that I really feel I could have gone deeper into,
That's something I don't do enough, actually. I think I'm definitely going to do that more, is reread, because like you say, I remember, that was a good book, I remember. And like you say, you just don't always you have to go back, and you have to, and then if you've made a few notes, like you said, Gareth, I think you can pick it up and you can get through it and just pick up those real value bombs that you really enjoyed the first time, and maybe a few more. And I just think it's really valuable to do that, actually. So it sounds like you've got a big you're right, actually. Don't just read and go, that's a good idea. Make some moves. So you've got some big plans for 2018 by the sounds of it. Let us in on some of what you're up to next year.
So the big theme for me is principled life, and on the other screen here I have an Evernote folder just called Principles. And what I really want to do in 2018 is just live a lot closer to the principles in my life that I think are important. And at the moment it's just too big. There are actually too many things on there that I want to try and condense. But in terms of focus for 2018, I'm just simplifying as much as I can. So I'm going to have 3 like main areas of focus. I want to be on stage as much as I can. I want to speak to as many people as I can. I want to be involved in coaching more. So this year was a good sort of lead into the coaching practice that I want to establish in 2018. And then the third thing is just to host more events. Like, it's been awesome. Like, I hated that first event. But since then, I've just actually loved it, and I've loved creating community. So hopefully this year we'll see, or 2018 we'll see, just awesome events in Joburg, and also hopefully trying to sort of get it into Cape Town and into Durban as well, with other guys maybe heading it up in those cities. So to me, just like very, very simplified focus for 2018, and not just, we tried so many things this year in Betterman, and it's been fun, but at some point you have to realize that every additional thing that you take on requires additional focus, and it takes away from you giving your 100% to just 1 or 2 things.
But very, very valuable advice there for sure. Just 2 things from me. Mm-hmm. Like, you have so much going on in your life, and in terms of like the businesses you run, the talks you do, the groups you host on Facebook, you're studying, relationship, friendships, etc. One, how do you sort of manage all of that? Like, what are any tools that you might use, or how do you prioritize things? And the second one is, what are your like interests and sort of hobbies, sort of away from all of this, to just have some you time?
All right. So on the managing side of things, the first thing that I do is I really love blocking out time, like big chunks of time for things. So specifically, like when I do my content creation, I really want to create 2 or 3 hours in a day where I can just sit down and do that, distraction free, no other commitments. So I sort of pre-book a lot of things in my diary. I have like date night, for example, booked out for the whole year on a Wednesday night. I have these blocks of time booked out right through. And one of the best things that I do is I just don't compromise on it. I treat those engagement as I would treat any other business engagement. They have as high a priority as anything else. So I try not to waver on the things that are important to me. And then the second thing is just to, sort of tie back to what we were talking about earlier about when you say yes and when you say no. I really want to focus my energy and effort on things that are meaningful. And it means saying no to a lot of things. It means saying, like, because of the Betterman community, because it's quite big, I get quite a few guys who want to like do promotions and run products through the group and things like that. And I realize that when I say yes to that, it means that there's energy and effort that needs to go into that. And it doesn't really align to what I want to accomplish for myself, which is to really be a global speaker, which is to speak in front of audiences every week, which is to have a big, thriving coaching practice. Like, those things are really important to me. So if it doesn't contribute to that, then at this stage, it's not that I don't want to help out. It's just I need to focus on what's important. So, I think time management is always an interesting topic. And what you were sort of saying, like, about prioritization is the crux of it all. What do you prioritize in your life? Like, show me your calendar and I can tell you what's important to you. So if it's important to you, you're going to make time for it. And if you're not making time for it, then I'm going to tell you it's not important to you. So that to me is how I try and manage my time. And then the second thing is, the second question was
about, like, what's
your
sort of distraction?
Hobbies. Yeah. So, I love what I do, so I can spend all day doing that, and I still feel fine. But I took up golf last year, which has been awesome, awesomely frustrating, and then just awesome as well. So I want to spend a lot more time in 2018 on the golf course for sure. But it's been so frustrating to learn the sport. But now that it's a year in and things are going well, I actually really love it. But apart from that, I actually I'm almost married to my work, which is a horrible thing to say. And when you have conversations like these and people ask you questions like that, you realize that you need to get a lot more done outside of the work that you do. But I'd say golf is definitely sort of the main thing. And then, I love spending time with my girlfriend, and she loves being outdoor, and I try and make time for that as well. So I would say my girlfriend and my golf. Those are my hobbies.
That's cool. Yeah, I once my stepdad always had this like Irish proverb thing on his bar at home, and it was like, golf is a beautiful walk spoiled by a small white ball. And I think it's so true.
That sounds very true.
Yeah, absolutely. And but so, I know, sorry, we've kept you for a couple of hours now, so thanks, and obviously had a couple of technical interruptions too. So how can people like get hold of you? What's the best way for people to find out about you and your groups, etc.?
Yeah, easiest way probably just to Google Erik Kruger. You'll find enough there, but you can also check out betterman.co.za, erikkruger.com, betterx.co. But if you go and Google any of that, you'll find it.
Brilliant, man. Well, just from my side there, Erik, it's been super valuable. You are a gentleman and a patient one at that. We had some nice issues there with the sound, but so thank you so much for your time. I just really look forward to 2018, checking you on stage more. And I'm looking forward to just getting involved in the community there as well with you guys, and just seeing what you're up to. I think it's good stuff that you're doing. It's all about, becoming better people and just living a life with more purpose, and why wouldn't that be a real positive and net effect for everyone around you? So,
sure.
so thanks so much for that, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me. I appreciate it, and I hope that Ridiculously Human goes from strength to strength, and that you guys just reach as many people as you can.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much. I actually think we found out about yourself was actually through John Sane. Do you know John at all?
Yeah. So we actually connected just after his book came out. We went for a coffee, and then since then we've gotten along very well. And he was actually at that talk that I gave in front of the 600 people, and he was very enthusiastic about the concept of accretion, and he's actually made some videos on it as well. So he's an awesome dude, and he's had a killer year.
Yeah, nice. He has for sure. Yeah, so that's actually I remember him posting something on stage, I think, with you, and that's how I was like, this Erik would be a great guy to actually have on the podcast. So yeah, but I just want to first of all say thank you so much. First of all, just for coming on the podcast, for telling us your story, has been super, super valuable. Thank you, like Craig said, for being so patient and actually kind, because people are not going to probably see too much or hear too much of the frustrations we had on this call, because for whatever reason, like the Wi-Fi on my side has just been horrendous, and we've had quite a few interruptions. So thank you for being patient and kind about that, and just nice about it, and understanding. You are like, from what I've known about you and just heard about you in this chat, a really awesome human, like super, super kind, and you just want the better for everybody, which is great, and you want them to be better versions of themselves, and you've got so many great skills to help them be better versions of themselves. So thank you for being such a great human, and we seriously wish you like the best of success in 2018. Like Craig said, we can't wait to see you on stage, and hopefully you'll speak in London or Australia one day, and we'll definitely get to meet you in person, which will be fantastic. So thanks for your time.
For the kind words.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your story. I think there's so much value in there, and we really look forward to posting this just in the first week of Jan. So very
awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for having me.
Cool, man.
Awesome.